And on my drive into work every day, I would pass a Chevrolet dealer. And I happened to go in one day and they had a 97 C5 convertible sitting in the showroom. And I had always wanted a Corvette and said to the guy, "Is this car for sale?" And I said that because you looked under the car and there were a lot of dust bunnies under it. He said, "No, we can't seem to sell this car." And so I ultimately, within the next week, bought the car, and that was our first introduction into Corvettes. The subsequent year, we made our first trek to Daytona in January for the Rolex 24, which was Corvette Racing's first year into that race. And I will tell you that is the car is very much like American Payroll / Payroll org. You build a family around the car. The car is there, but it's all the other interactions and the people you get to meet. It's just tremendous. And in 2001, Maro and I had already proposed to her, and I said, "Well, where do you want to get married?" And she said, "Well, I don't know, you pick." So she had to go on a business trip to Jacksonville. I tagged along. I drove down to Daytona and asked the office. I said, "I know you guys have wedding packages, but I don't, we want to get married at the track. What do we need to do to make it happen? I don't want a package." And they said, "Well, if you're not going to have a package, you can pretty much do what you want." So in 2001, we belonged to a national Corvette club called, at that time, was the C5 Registry. And before the race began on Saturday morning, they allowed our club to do a parade lap. Well, I reached out to a few members in the very expansive club, partnered with an attorney who said he could marry us. We got to Daytona that year a couple of days early. We went into the town hall of Daytona and said, "We need to get a marriage license. What's it going to take?" Well, $56.87 later, we had a marriage license, no blood test, which I thought was amazing, but we were both out-of-staters. What I thought was interesting, they wanted to know if we owned any guns. And I remember that because I thought that was just an unusual question. So we got the marriage license, we got married before the parade lap that year in 2001. The entire Corvette racing team found out about the marriage. They showed up. At that time at Daytona, Brian, you probably remember this, on the backstretch, they had all those sky boxes. Chevrolet rented a skybox and had a wedding cake in there for, unbeknownst to us, rented the skybox, had a wedding cake, came to us after the wedding and said, "Please feel free to use the skybox. It's there for the entire weekend for your entire club." And then when we showed up, they had a wedding cake. So we got married at that race in 2001. And so for me, it's easy when people say to me, "Well, how long have you been married?" Well, I take current year -1. That's how many years I've been married. Now, don't ask me the date because I can't remember the date. I think it's either February 2nd or 3rd. But I can tell you how many years I've been married. And
you just have to simply say 24 hours at Daytona, 2001.
Yeah. And so we have been diehard Corvette fans since '97, and the community has just been amazing to us. And, if I could take the camera and pan the office, you're only seeing a little bit of what I have hanging on the wall, but most of the pieces that I have in here are autographed by the team. So it's just been an amazing association with Corvette racing.
Yeah, just a real funny play on that story with the Corvette fans. My brother-in-law, who has since passed away, was a huge Corvette fan. And when he passed, they live in Cincinnati, one of the relatives that I was telling you about. And so my sister, his wife, he died up here in Cleveland. And so I took care of all the arrangements and things like that. And I took his ashes down to Cincinnati. So I'm driving in the car down Interstate 71. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, a complete convoy of about 10 Corvettes come up from out of nowhere, come out, and they completely surround my car for about 5 miles. I mean, it was the weirdest thing. I've never seen that since. Had seen it before. And they escorted him for, I don't know, probably about 5 minutes or maybe 10. But I thought, okay, his name was Barry. I'm like, Barry, you got your send off here. And yeah, it was pretty amazing. So when we're talking about the track, that's the
Yeah.
memory that popped into my head. He still has a bunch of old Corvettes that my sister now has, but they're from 1958 all the way up into, I
So
think,
are
like
you
20.
are you both saying that Jesus has a Corvette?
Basically, I think
Sure,
we're implying
absolutely.
that. Yes.
Yeah.